Former Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore, is fighting to save the planet from what he calls a climate crisis.
There are only three questions remaining about the climate crisis. Must we change? Can we change? Will we change?
He's not just invested in the outcome, he's investing in the process.
Once change is embraced, you feel the wind at your back and you begin to think, well, why haven't we done this before?
Al Gore discusses his vision for climate action today and his hopes for tomorrow on this Bloomberg Businessweek Debrief. I spoke with former Vice President Al Gore at the Global Climate Action Summit in San Francisco about what he calls the sustainability revolution. He wants U.S. investors to support policies that benefit the environment without sacrificing profits.
The sustainability revolution is the largest investing opportunity and the largest set of business opportunities in all of history. And many companies are also becoming aware of the risks that have been understated of continuing with the fossil fuel economy, with the exploitive business models that ignore waste, ignore pollution, ignore exploitation of communities and workforces. And by the way, when companies do get with this program and adopt these kinds of goals, all kinds of benefits come to them, including recruitment and retention. The brightest and best young women and men want to work for companies that give them a good income, but also give them an opportunity to say to their family and friends that they're part of something larger than just making money. They're helping to make the world a better place.
So you've actually become a modest success story in part because of Generation Investment Management, which you co-founded in 2004 with David Blood.
Right.
You now manage $18 billion.
A little bit.
Little bit.
Fine.
Using this lens of
21, but what's $3 billion among friends? That's
using this sustainable finance lens. So as an investor, what do you look for in business strategies?
Well, we look for companies that don't borrow from the future and that help to create a more sustainable and prosperous and healthy present without doing so at the expense of the opportunities that should be available down the road. And we find that companies that really focus on that model are far more likely to be successful than their competitors in almost every sector of the marketplace. And there's now voluminous academic research tending to prove that businesses that are aligned with this sustainability revolution are likely to be more successful. And in the investor marketplace, there used to be this outdated view that fiduciary responsibility somehow prevented asset managers from taking the environment and social and governance factors into account. But now that's been turned on its head, and actually best practice tells us that asset managers that do not take these factors fully into account are themselves violating their fiduciary responsibility. And that's kind of an earthquake where ESG factors in the investing marketplace is concerned. And it's really beginning to sweep through the investing marketplace.
Right. To counter that, though, if there's so much money to be made in sustainable finance, why haven't we seen more investors really flock to this?
Well, we are seeing a lot who are coming in this direction. Anytime there is a significant change, inertia is an obstacle. It's just because of human nature, and the QWERTY keyboard makes no more sense. Doesn't make any sense anymore. But the transition to a new design has frustrated all of the keyboard and software companies. Same thing when you ask people or businesses to make a systemic change to an approach that has been used for a long time and people are comfortable with it. Change can be difficult, but once change is embraced, you feel the wind at your back, and you begin to think, well, why haven't we done this before?
As an investor, what are the trends that you're really trying to get in front of still?
Well, we look, we pay attention to the SDGs from the UN. We don't use that as an investment thesis, but we map to them. We look at what a company does, and does it have a good chance of being profitable, and is it making the world a better place? How does it do what it does? What is the sector of the marketplace they're in? Do they have a moat? How big is the castle? How good is the castle? What's the quality of the management team? Are they really aware of all of these environmental and social and governance factors? Are they well governed? Do they have the right kind of incentive and compensation structure that doesn't encourage people to make short-term decisions in order to meet some quarterly reporting requirement or some other short-term artificial metric? Are they really focused instead on the longer-term maturation of the business? And again, are they making the world and their communities a better place? Are they paying attention to the needs of their employees and their employees' families, their supply chains, what communities are being affected by their supply chains? Those are some of the factors we look at. But by the way, a company could have all of those things in spades, but its value may be recognized already in the marketplace, and so it's not a profit opportunity for us. And our number one goal is to get the highest return for our clients, but to do so in a way that invests according to this sustainability model.
And do you have to have a climate solution in order to be in the portfolio?
Well, we have to feel that the company is aligned with sustainability, and the face of sustainability is a little bit different sector by sector. If it's a financial services company, for example, the carbon emissions, while still important, are not usually a major factor in their sustainability profile, but their HR culture is. You look at all of the spectacular failures among financial services companies over the last 25 or 30 years. In almost every case, there was a bad HR culture, a bad culture generally that eventually caught up with the firm. So that's an example of where the social and governance and HR factors would be a bigger part of the sustainability analysis.
Coming up, much more with Al Gore, who believes the Trump administration's climate policies won't stop the sustainable revolution.
I was worried when he made his announcement that we were going to pull out of the Paris Agreement, but no other country in the world followed his lead.
That's ahead on this Bloomberg Businessweek Debrief, a conversation with Al Gore. Al Gore co-founded Generation Investment Management in 2004 with David Blood, and the firm now manages about $20 billion. Generation invests in companies with a sustainable lens. Gore talked about the growth potential he sees for these cutting-edge companies.
This sustainability revolution is the single largest investing opportunity in all of history. I'll give you another example just to illustrate how broad the opportunity set is. We've invested in a company called Toast that takes on food waste. In one of the sessions this morning over at the Global Climate Action Summit, they talked about the enormity of food waste in the global economy. I can't remember the statistics, but it would be like the third or fourth largest consumer of food in the world, just the waste. Well, this company takes that on, and in the process has created for restaurants an incredibly efficient, easy to use, highly productive digital system for restaurateurs to manage their restaurants, to connect the kitchen to the server, to eliminate almost all of the food waste.
President Trump's administration has chipped away ceaselessly at environmental protections. He seems to love coal. And climate skeptics still exist. How have these challenges changed you and your approach?
Well, since President Trump took office, the cancellation and retirement of coal plants, coal generating plants, has actually accelerated. And I was worried when he made his announcement that we were going to pull out of the Paris Agreement, but no other country in the world followed his lead. In physics, there's this law, for each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, that's true in politics as well. And you saw the big march here last Saturday, if you were here, all over the world in cities. And what the California State Legislature did last week, and the governor signed it on Monday.
Which is 100% renewable electricity by 2045.
Correct, here in California. And he accompanied the signing of that bill with the signing of an executive order that commits the state of California to zero carbon energy in all of the activities that take place in California by 2045. So this is an extremely consequential measure. And again, it's happened since Trump took office. And by the way, under the law, and we are still a nation under law as of right now, and will remain so, under the law, the first day the U.S. could actually withdraw from the Paris Agreement happens to be one day after the next presidential election. And if there's a new president, excuse me for a moment, then a new president could simply give 30 days notice and the U.S. would be right back in the agreement. And we have seen not only California, but 15 other states and hundreds of cities, hundreds of giant companies. I'm on the board of Apple, and Apple's already 100% renewable energy. We heard from Benioff, Mark Benioff, the head of Salesforce this morning. They're already at 100% renewable energy. There's so many others that are doing this. Google, same way. And incidentally, I'll use them as an example of this sustainability revolution. They bought an artificial intelligence company called DeepMind several years ago, about 4 years ago. And the founders, Demis Hassabis and Mustafa Suleyman, are just incredibly smart. And they asked DeepMind if they could help with the energy use in Google's server farms, the biggest in the world. So with no new hardware and an increased output of processed information, just with the use of AI, they were able to reduce energy use by 56% in all these server farms. I mean, that's incredible.
And it was somewhat counterintuitive how they did it, too, because they changed how the whole operation worked by actually maxing it out at certain moments, right?
Yeah. Well, you obviously know a lot about this. And at first they, I'm glad. At first they gave a recommendation to the managers every 30 minutes, and they got a 40% reduction. And then they found out that the managers were just automatically accepting all the rest. And they said, okay, well, let's just take it down to 5 minutes and take the managers out of it. Now they're down to a 1 minute turnover cycle. And they went from 40% reductions to 56% reductions. And there are thousands of use cases, hundreds of thousands of use cases in the global economy where that same kind of approach can achieve incredibly high levels of efficiency.
Can we back up to the Paris Agreement for a moment, which is, what's the plan B for the worst case scenario?
Well, there's no planet B, so there's no plan B. We have to do this. And in fact, the plan under the Paris Agreement is an evolving plan because there is a 5-year review period built in every 5 years. And nations are called upon. This will begin next year in 2019 for implementation in 2020. And because the cost reduction curves for solar electricity, wind electricity, batteries, electric vehicles, lots of efficiency improvements continue to plummet, it gets easier every year for nations to achieve higher and more ambitious goals for reducing by higher amounts. And so this 5-year review process will be a time to take stock and for nations to raise their ambition. We've already heard some announcements of nations upping the ante, and companies as well.
Up next, Al Gore's ambitious goals for the future of the planet.
I'd like to see us solve the climate crisis and build a healthier, more prosperous, fair, more just society and economy in the process.
That's ahead on this Bloomberg Businessweek Debrief, a conversation with Al Gore.
When you look ahead, what are the most ambitious goals you'd like us to see accomplish within your lifetime?
I'd like to see us solve the climate crisis and build a healthier, more prosperous, fair, more just society and economy in the process. And just to return to this crisis for a moment, you know, there are only 3 questions remaining about the climate crisis. Must we change? Can we change? Will we change? Just to pause for a moment on why we must change. We're still treating the atmosphere as an open sewer. We're putting 110 million tons every day of man-made heat-trapping pollution into the sky, and it lingers there for a long time. And the cumulative amount now traps as much extra heat as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every day. And it's a big planet, but that's a lot of energy, and that's why it gets hotter every year. That's why the oceans are getting so hot. That's why Hurricane Florence intensified so rapidly. That's why this super typhoon that's even larger heading towards southeast China today is as large as it is. That's why the worst fire in the history of California was 1 month ago in the Mendocino Complex fire. That's why the fire season here in the West is 105 days per year longer than it used to be. That's why the drought in the Southwest is as intense as it is. That's why there are fish from the ocean swimming in the streets of Miami at high tide because of the melting ice and sea level rise. And since the scientists were spot on in warning us about all of those consequences, and now we see them played out on the evening news every night. It's like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. That should cause us to pay more attention to what the scientific community is telling us will happen in the future if we continue using the sky as an open sewer. I don't want to have to explain to my grandchildren why my generation sat around and failed to deal with this. I would much rather tell them how the generation in control in these years actually rose to the moral challenge and found a way to do it that helped us in every other aspect of our lives. This is a really critical choice that we have to make. We must change. And the second question, can we change? Now we have all these technologies. We have the ability to do it. The most important is the third question, will we change? And What we're seeing in these days here at this summit in California is great evidence that, yes, we will. The Paris Agreement is equally significant evidence that we will change. Some doubt that we have the political will, but it's worth remembering that political will is itself a renewable resource.
You're no longer an elected official. What do you know now that you wish you would have known then?
Well, quite a lot, actually. We all learn as we age and as we have more experience. I have really enjoyed the business world. Generation Investment Management, and some of my colleagues are here today, by the way. It's been an absolutely thrilling experience for me. The women and men that I work with there are inspiring to me. The relationship we have with our clients and with the executive teams and CEOs that we invest with, I just absolutely love it. And I've learned a lot about the business world. I thought I knew a lot before, and I've still got a lot to learn, but it's been really fascinating and really fun.
What are you most excited about?
I'm excited that we are beginning to achieve the momentum we need in this world to solve the climate crisis. It's almost unimaginably difficult to make the transition that's now underway because we still rely on fossil energy for 80% of the world's energy use. And that seems like a worthy challenge to take on. But I'm excited because I see people taking it on every day and succeeding in the process. We are going to win this. The remaining question is whether we will win it in time to avoid crossing some dangerous threshold that would throw the climate balance out of kilter. You know, this hurricane off the Carolinas now, like Hurricane Harvey last year, is an example of how the jet stream, the Northern Hemisphere jet stream, is kind of behaving in a goofy way now. We've melted so much ice in the Arctic that the temperature is going up much faster there, changing the differential of temperature at the North Pole to the equator. And that's one of the main things that defines the pattern of wind currents and ocean currents to redistribute that heat. And so you get these storms that are just locked in place for days at a time. That's one example of dangerous thresholds that we should not risk crossing. The oceans are another, acidifying the oceans, boiling, making the temperature go up so much. We put at risk elements of the ocean food chain. I could give you hundreds of other examples. Coral reefs now are really in grave danger. So it matters how quickly we win this, but I'm excited that we're now gaining enough momentum that the hope is legitimate and real.
On behalf of Bloomberg Businessweek, join me in giving a warm round of applause to former Vice President Al Gore.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.